Team H have arrived out at Wolf's Cafe in Ilovo, and I'm about to meet a man that can see the future. No doubt, I want to know what's happening in 2015. Let's go. Well, I suspect that the man with the tablet is the man that I have to see today. How are you, Doug?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Danine?
I'm very well, thank you.
Great.
Now, I know we're going to be talking CES in just a bit, but before we even get there, you're what they call a futurist. What is a futurist and what do you do?
Okay, well, a futurist is someone who looks into the future and tries to help companies and business people in particular understand the future. And what we call at FutureWorld, what we say, learning from the future. Because we believe that you can't learn from the past anymore. You have to be able to learn from the future by anticipating the big trends and thinking about how those scenarios might affect you in the future.
Now on to CES. What exactly does this festival actually offer?
All right, well, the International Consumer Electronics Show, as it's called, in Las Vegas, takes place every year in the first week of January. It's a massive exhibition of all kinds of consumer gadgets, electronics, anything from TVs to smartphones to any kind of invention that's coming up these days. About 150,000 people visit it, so it's a massive, massive show.
What do you predict 2015 is going to bring us or surprise us with in terms of tech?
Okay, well, 2015 is an interesting year because a lot of the big tech mega trends are starting to mature now. So the ones particularly that come to mind are ubiquitous connectivity, everything through smartphones and devices, the Internet of Things, which is becoming very big. Then you've got big data and artificial intelligence and algorithms, and even things like 3D printing and robotics, which includes drones and all of those sort of things. So those are some of the big trends that are going to affect us for the next couple of decades. And we're seeing some of these starting to filter through into the consumer space.
Now, Doug, in my humble observation, and I am a trainee techie, I've noticed that wearable tech is becoming quite the hot property. What more can you tell us about that?
Right, this is an absolutely huge thing. So we're seeing a lot more affordable wearables, things like smartwatches that don't cost $200 coming out at CES at the moment. And there will be a lot of what you might call more simple devices, things that you can just stick on yourself like a plaster patch and it'll measure your heart rate and all sorts of things like that. The Google Glass idea didn't take off. That was a bit of a fizzled out, bit of a flop. But we will see other devices that are more useful and less intrusive, like the Fitbits, like the various things that you can wear or connect to other things like your pets, for example. You can get a wearable device that you can put in your pet and it'll tell you, you can look up on your smartphone and see what your cat's up to. And that's
well, that's not too shabby. Okay. Now, onto robotics. Anything new, and can I get a butler in a box yet?
No, I'm afraid not.
No.
We're not getting that far. But things that are starting to filter through into the consumer space are, of course, drones. So you're getting hobbyist kind of drones and even more professional drones. You can get a professional camera system drone for less than $3,000 now. So these things are really advancing into the affordable space, and we'll see a lot more of those in the future, as we will driverless cars, but that'll still take a few years.
Now, with this overflow of gadgets and technology developing, in your opinion, if you had to really fine-tune it, what are some of the gadgets that are going to be absolutely awesome to look out for 2015?
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of devices that are coming through that are designed to connect your daily life. So connect in your house, you can connect your lights. You can really buy Wi-Fi lights that you can dim and brighten using an app on your phone. So there's a lady in the US who's basically kitted her house out with these things. So when she walks up to the front door unlocks when it detects her phone coming up to the door. And then it turns on the lights, automatically sets the thermostat for when she's at home rather than when she's away, all that kind of thing. So these can all be connected together and even to your car and other systems, so that these things talk to each other and take away a lot of the unnecessary drudgery. It's basically automating everything.
Now, we've kind of dissected it into gadgets and certain trends, but what do you think is going to be the biggest news in tech in 2015?
Okay, well, for me, 2015 is a fairly short horizon. I tend to talk more in terms of the next 10 years. But I think having a look at these mega trends, like the Internet of Things, like the artificial intelligence and the algorithms that drive the big data that makes all these things work together. It's actually the nexus of these, where all these come together with smart apps that really prove useful for us. That is where we're going to see massive changes coming through. So it's almost the new businesses and the new business models that are built on these converging technologies that are going to really make a difference in our lives. We don't actually know what all of those are, but we can see hints of them starting to filter through.
So what I take from it is that the Internet of Things and apps is pretty much going to be what will bring it all together really nicely in 2015.
With the intelligence behind it, the cloud services, all these things now connect to the cloud rather than to each other. They all connect through to a service that helps them to talk to each other and make sense of the data that they're feeding through. And it's getting that data back in a useful sense, not only just in a marketing sense, but to actually provide utility to the end user, to the consumer. That's where the big money lies in the future.
Wow, it certainly is quite mind-boggling, I have to say, and pretty overwhelming for somebody who's a non-techie, but it's exciting nonetheless, and thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Here's to CES and all the amazing things to rock in 2015. For now, though, I'm going to head over to Lise Hagen, who's going to tell us more about how all of this actually relates to Mother Africa, and she's a research manager at International Data Corporation SA. Lise Hagen, thank you so much for joining us on The Edge today. So, how do you think Africa can show off in 2015 with their developments?
I think you cannot have a conversation around Africa and not reference the amazing mobility story that we have. Africa is a mobile continent, and it's just astounding with what we are able to do with the devices at our disposal, whether these are feature phones, smartphones, or tablets, and how people can access that. You could be in a rural area and access something through a feature phone, extra math lessons. The one thing about Africa, if there's a challenge, there will be someone who goes, there must be a way for us to get around this. And that innovative approach is, I think, something that makes it really, really credible. The other thing I wanted to mention is the fact that technology is used on a very basic level. If you look at the BRCK device, it's homegrown technology for connectivity, devised and built in Africa. And that is to ensure connectivity for a variety of devices. It's a global world, but with an Africa flavor.
Love it, Africa flavor. So we're seeing industrial 3D printing and commercial 3D printing really starting to take off. How do you think this will change the possibilities that we have in functioning and the things that we want to produce?
I think it's a fantastic opportunity, especially if you look at the incredible geographic span of Africa. With the huge continent comes huge logistical issues. So if you're stuck in a rural area, you urgently need a part for a motor car or a tooth, a crown or something like that. If you can utilize 3D printing there, instead of having to go to your hub, your regional hub, or your big town or your big city, it will have a huge impact on people's quality of life.
Now, from 3D printing to this buzzword that's been thrown around, the third platform. Can you divulge more on that?
What we mean with the third platform is what's been happening previously. Our first platform was basically mainframe computing, the second platform, PCs and servers, and the third platform is basically an evolution of that, using multiple devices, multiple endpoints, with multiple applications, used by millions and billions of people. And the four pillars on which this rests is cloud computing, social media, big data, and enterprise mobility or mobility. We very often get questions like, but big data in Africa, why would people want to use it? It's very expensive, and what's the uses? And I think that there are many, many uses, whether it's used in medicine, whether it's used to track people that had been in contact with Ebola victims, to make sure that they contain an outbreak of Ebola. And they use big data for that. So they used flight plans, they used social media, they used a variety of sources. So I think the really exciting thing is the use of technology and how Africa leapfrogs. If because of infrastructural lack, going towards the newest technologies is just so much easier. And that's really quite exciting, actually.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for spending time with us. I've learned so much from you in just one sitting. Now, from a fellow lady in tech, back to the boys. Now, the guys at Bushveld Labs have been causing quite a stir at CES lately. Let's check in on what they're up to, or actually, rather what they're into. Be warned, this is some hardcore tech, not for the faint-hearted.